Welcome to today's Explainer. We're setting off on a pretty incredible journey today, diving deep into the unbreakable human spirit. Throughout history, humanity has faced some absolutely impossible odds. I'm talking about everything from unforgiving, brutal climates to the lethal political games of massive empires. Yet time and time again, we don't just scrape by and survive, we completely defy the odds. So today, we're going to explore 4 wildly different historical eras that really showcase exactly how stubborn, ingenious, and fiercely resilient we can be.
Here is a quick rundown of our agenda. 1. Ancient Corral's desert peace. 2. Surviving a medieval winter. 3. Anne Boleyn's lethal ambition. And 4. The Boston Tea Party.
Part 1. Ancient Corral's desert peace, the dawn of civilization in the Americas. We're going to kick things off by stepping back almost 5,000 years into the parched, windswept Supe Valley of coastal Peru. For millennia, travelers literally just walked right past these strange, weathered mounds of earth, assuming they were natural hills. But hidden right beneath the sand lay a completely forgotten marvel, the ancient city of Corral.
Timeline into perspective for a second, Corral was already thriving before the pyramids of Giza were even built, and a full 1,000 years before anyone erected Stonehenge. But here's the part that is truly shocking. The people of Corral built a sprawling 150-acre metropolis completely without the wheel, without any written language, and without a single metal tool. They pulled this off using pure human willpower and woven reed bags filled with rocks.
Now, when archaeologists actually stumbled onto something that deeply defies our expectations of ancient empires. They found 0 weapons, no defensive walls, no mass graves that would hint at some bloody conquest. So it presents this fascinating, almost mind-bending mystery. How on earth did a massive ancient city thrive for centuries in a harsh desert without ever going to war?
It turns out the answer was collaboration. Instead of conquering, they just traded. They grew cotton using these brilliant irrigation systems and traded it for dried fish and rare shells from the coast. They even engineered 60-foot pyramids with flexible foundations that could literally absorb the shock of Peru's violent earthquakes. And honestly, perhaps the most beautiful part is that they centered their entire society on connection. Archaeologists unearthed flutes carved from condor bones and drums made of deer hide. They were a society built on the quiet, steady power of cooperation, rather than the brutal force of conquest.
Moving on to part 2, a medieval winter, the brutal reality of the Middle Ages. All right, let's do a hard reset here and jump forward a few thousand years to medieval Europe. We're trading that scorching desert for relentless, freezing misery. Because, listen, for the average medieval peasant, winter wasn't just a season, it was a deadly, daily test of endurance.
The jarring difference between our winters and theirs basically boils down to shelter. Today, a drafty window is just an annoyance, right? But for a medieval peasant living in a tiny hut made of sticks and mud, which, by the way, was often insulated with animal dung, the wind was a physical assault. You're surrounded by paper-thin walls, sleeping maybe 1 layer of straw away from the frozen dirt floor. In fact, bringing a goat indoors to sleep right next to you wasn't weird at all. That animal's body heat was a genuine, life-saving survival tactic.
And you have to remember, the hearth was literally the only thing standing between a peasant and becoming a human popsicle. But matches didn't exist. If your fire died in the middle of the night, you very well might not wake up. So it required this high-stakes, incredibly delicate art known as fireplaces. Families would carefully bury glowing embers under ash just to insulate them, sleep in shifts to make sure a straight draft didn't put them out, and then frantically poke the pile at sunrise, praying for a spark.
But their stubborn ingenuity definitely didn't stop there. Having clean clothes in winter was actually a terrible idea because clean wool is too breathable. So peasants intentionally let dirt and body grease build up on their cloaks to create a wind-resistant thermal shield. They even taught their kids to breathe shallowly through their noses while sleeping to warm the icy air before it hit their lungs, which helped avoid deadly pneumonia. And right before bed, they'd stuff root vegetable stews. The digestion process acted like an internal furnace, generating calories to keep them warm. It wasn't glamorous by any stretch, but hey, it kept them alive.
Part 3. Anne Boleyn's lethal ambition, Tudor court chess in the 1530s. So, from the freezing dirt floors of peasant huts, let's step into the dazzling, highly treacherous halls of King Henry VIII's court. This is the story of a woman whose electric intellect and dangerous ambition essentially rewrote the entire course of English history. When Anne returned to England from the French courts, she was an absolute thunderstorm. She wasn't just beautiful, she was sharp, sophisticated, and entirely unpredictable. King Henry VIII was obsessed, but Anne did something practically unheard of for the time. She outright refused to be his royal mistress. She basically told the king, if you want me, you have to make me your wife. Incredibly calculated refusal dragged an entire kingdom into uncharted political waters. It prompted Henry to literally break with the Pope, trigger the English Reformation, and create the Church of England, all just to place a crown on Anne's head.
But, as we know, Anne's masterful gameplay ultimately built to a massive tragedy, the harder you fall. When she failed to produce a male heir, giving birth instead to the future Queen Elizabeth I, Henry's love quickly curdled into cold detachment. Her former allies, led by Thomas Cromwell, moved with brutal speed to destroy her. They fabricated these wild, monstrous charges: adultery with multiple men, incest with her own brother, and high treason. In Henry's court, truth was simply whatever the king needed it to be to get out of a marriage.
Anne Boleyn was condemned to die, yet even standing on the scaffold inside the Tower of London, she did not break. Her final words were a powerful testament to her legendary stoicism. She simply knelt, folded her hands in prayer, and waited. Henry, in what was considered a final twisted act of mercy, hired a French swordsman rather than an axeman to ensure a clean strike. Her life ended in an unmarked grave, for sure, but her fierce spirit completely survived in her daughter, Elizabeth I, who would go on to become one of England's absolute greatest monarchs.
Part 4. The Boston Tea Party
Defiance
in 1773. For our final chapter, we're crossing the Atlantic to a pretty explosive night in the American colonies. It's 1773, and the relationship between Britain and the colonies has completely soured into furious resentment. The age of peaceful petitions? Yeah, that's about to end.
The entire conflict centers on the Tea Act of 1773. On paper, Parliament thought they were offering the colonies this great bargain: cheap tea direct from the East India Company. But the colonists instantly saw right through it. They recognized this bargain as a total trap. The act secretly maintained a highly hated tax. If the colonists accepted the cheap tea, they'd implicitly be accepting Britain's right to tax them without representation. To the patriots up in Boston, accepting rendering their liberty, and that was a no-go. The most staggering aspect of this whole rebellion is the sheer math of it all. On the freezing night of December 16th, a group of men disguised with soot and blankets quietly boarded 3 British ships anchored in Boston Harbor. Now, they weren't some chaotic, rioting mob. It was a chillingly disciplined military operation. They broke open exactly 342 chests of tea and dumped tens of thousands of pounds of it right into the water. No cargo was stolen. Not a single crew member was harmed. It was just pure, calculated defiance. Naturally, Britain's reaction was absolutely furious. They passed the Intolerable Act specifically to crush Massachusetts into submission. The Boston Port Act completely starving the local economy overnight, while the Massachusetts Government Act stripped away their right to self-rule. But this spectacular retaliation, it backfired completely. Instead of isolating Boston, it outraged the rest of the continent. Colonies all the way from Virginia to Pennsylvania sent food and supplies, eventually forming the First Continental Congress. Britain tried to break Boston, but all they really did was forge 13 fragmented colonies into a unified revolutionary storm.
The legacy of the unbreakable. You see, from the ancient peaceful pyramids of Corral built against all odds in a harsh desert, brilliantly stubborn survival tactics of a freezing medieval peasant, from a fiercely intelligent Tudor queen who flat out refused to be pushed aside, to a silent harbor in Boston that ended up sparking a revolution, all of these stories share a common thread. They prove that when humanity's back is pushed firmly against the wall, we adapt and we endure.
So I want to leave you with this thought as we wrap up our explainer today. We actually carry the legacy of these survivors in our very DNA. Every single time you innovate your way out of a messy problem, or refuse to compromise your principles, or just grit your teeth and make it through a really dark winter, you are channeling them. How do history's most stubborn survivors and defiant rebels echo in your own modern life? Think about that the next time you're facing an impossible challenge. Thanks for joining me today, guys, and keep exploring.